Let's kick off another deep dive. And today, we're going all in on Bruce Lee. You know, the guy who made martial arts? Well, cool.
Oh,
We're
absolutely.
going to be breaking down his most iconic fight scenes. Thanks to WatchMojo.com, they've got this awesome countdown called Top 10 Bruce Lee Moments.
Yeah, but it's more than just kicks and punches, right? What makes Lee's fight scenes so amazing is that they're just packed with philosophy, strategy, pure charisma.
Yeah, it's true.
We're going beyond the action here. We're going to explore what makes these moments so memorable, not just as fights, but as expressions of Lee's whole approach to combat and even life.
Okay, I am so ready for this. Hit me with number 10.
Number 10. We're going straight into the ice factory brawl from the big boss. Right away, we see Lee outnumbered, he's unarmed, and he's trapped. Classic underdog situation.
Yeah, for sure.
I think a lot of viewers probably thought, okay, here comes the typical beat-em-up scene.
Yeah, totally. But Lee's not your typical action hero, is he?
Not at all. Instead of just going in with brute force, he uses the entire environment as his weapon. Remember those ice picks? They're everywhere in that scene.
Right.
Suddenly, they're not just tools for making ice, they're potential daggers in Lee's hands. He even throws a guy through a wall.
That is so creative. I never thought about it like that.
Right.
It's not just about fighting. It's about, strategically using your surroundings.
That's Jeet Kune Do for you, Lee's own martial arts philosophy. It's all about adapting and using what's available.
Right.
He had that famous saying, "Be water, my friend," meaning be formless, shapeless, like water adapting to any container. That fight perfectly embodies that philosophy. He's flowing with the situation. He's using the ice, the walls, even his opponent's own momentum against them.
Wow. Okay, so from the very beginning, we see that Lee's fights are about way more than just physical strength.
Right.
It's like there are many lessons in his philosophy. What's next?
All right, number 9 takes us to Way of the Dragon. And this one highlights one of the most amusing details in Lee's films, the Roman gangsters he's facing. They're specifically ordered not to use guns against him.
Wait, hold on. Why would gangsters do that?
Yeah.
I mean, that's ridiculous.
That's what's so great about it. It's like a wink at the audience, right? It's a humorous way of acknowledging how skilled Lee's character is.
Right.
It's almost superhuman, you know? The filmmakers are basically saying, let's give these guys a fighting chance, even though we all know what's about to happen.
Oh, okay, so it's a setup. So what does Lee do with this fighting chance?
He whips out not one, but TWO sets of nunchucks. And it looks like they just appear out of thin air. Classic Bruce Lee move.
Hold on, where were those things? That's like a pretty big oversight.
And that's the question that keeps fans debating to this day. Was it intentional humor, a clever way to show Lee's always prepared, or was it just a straight-up filmmaking mistake? Whatever the answer, it adds to the legend.
So we've got adaptability, a touch of humor. What other themes start to emerge from these early fights?
Okay, well, number 8 introduces us to the concept of escalating intensity. So in Enter the Dragon, Lee's in this underground lair,
Right.
facing off against a whole bunch of opponents.
Right.
And as he defeats each one, his weapon upgrades, reflecting his rising power level.
It's like a video game. You know, every time he levels up, his weapon gets cooler.
Exactly. It's this visual metaphor for Lee's constant evolution,
Ah.
his ability to adapt to any challenge. And it's not just about the physical weapon itself, it's about his mental and strategic adaptability, too.
Right.
He's reading his opponents, he's anticipating their moves, using their strengths against them.
So it's not just brute force, it's about constantly learning and adapting as the fight goes on. I kind of wish they'd thrown, more opponents at him.
Yeah.
Just to see what he would have come up with.
Right. It's like, could anything stop him?
Mhm.
But unfortunately, the scene has to end sometime. Which brings us to number 7, and this is probably one of the most visually striking fights in Lee's whole filmography.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely epic.
Yeah.
You're talking about the showdown against Kareem Abdul-Jabbar in Game of Death, right?
Bingo. Right away, you see the contrast in size. Lee, he's 5'6". He looks tiny compared to Kareem, who's a towering 7'2". But remember what Lee says in the film? Boards don't hit back. Meaning brute strength without technique and strategy is useless. And that's exactly what we see in this fight. Lee, he's using his speed, his agility, those precision strikes to overcome this massive size difference.
So this fight is literally a visual representation of that quote.
Yeah.
But how does he do it? I mean, it's one thing to say technique beats size, but I need to see it.
Right. Well, for example, Lee uses kicks to Jabbar's legs, his knees. targeting his mobility, his balance.
Okay.
He disrupts Jabbar's rhythm, creates openings for counterattacks. He also uses his lower center of gravity to his advantage, which makes him way harder to grapple with.
Wow, I never noticed any of that before. It really highlights how Lee's style was all about turning weaknesses into strengths, his own and his opponent's.
Exactly. It's not about matching power with power. It's about strategy, intelligence to overcome any obstacle.
Okay, now I'm starting to see the depth here. Every single fight's not just a spectacle. It's a demonstration of, like, a different part of Lee's philosophy and fighting style. What's next on the list?
Number 6 takes us into some darker territory. We're talking about the emotionally charged fight against O'Hara in Enter the Dragon.
Right.
And this one, it's not just a fight, it's personal. O'Hara's responsible for Lee's sister's death. You can feel that rage, that grief, fueling every one of his movements.
Yeah, it's definitely different. It's not that playful, almost superhuman Lee we've seen so far. It's raw, it's brutal.
Exactly. And the brutality goes beyond the physical stuff. Lee's attacking O'Hara's mind as much as his body. He's breaking his spirit along with his bones.
It's almost scary to watch. He's like a different person.
Right. It's a reminder that Lee, even though he's often got that lighthearted, philosophical side to him, he was capable of intense emotion. He understood the power of emotion in a fight as both a motivator and a weapon.
So we're seeing this other side of Lee here, more vulnerable, emotionally charged. And it adds, yet another layer to his already complex character.
Yeah.
What's next on this roller coaster ride of a countdown?
Okay, number 5. This one's really cool because we see Lee going up against one of his own students, Petrov, in Fist of Fury.
Oh yeah, this one's a wild one. Petrov, his fighting style is so aggressive, so unpredictable.
Right, exactly. And Lee, he's the master strategist. He uses this mix of just punishing action, but with these unexpected moments of humor to throw Petrov off. He's smirking. He's using these blurry hand movements. At one point, he even bites him.
Biting, that's a bit extreme, don't you think? Okay, it's a fight, but biting seems a little unorthodox.
Well, it shows how Lee's fighting style was always full of surprises. Jeet Kune Do. Remember, it's all about being fluid, adapting, constantly keeping your opponent guessing. And this fight, it really illustrates that principle.
It's like he's playing mind games with Petrov. It's not just physical, it's psychological too.
Totally. Every move Lee makes, it's an extension of his personality, his strategic thinking. He's not just reacting, he's dictating the pace, using psychology as a weapon.
And that's what makes it so mesmerizing to watch. It's like a chess match, but played out with punches and kicks and a little bit of humor thrown in there.
Exactly. It just emphasizes how Lee saw martial arts, not as some rigid set of rules, but as this fluid, adaptable system that you have to tailor to each individual, each situation.
Okay, enough about the student. Let's see what the master has up his sleeve for number 4.
All right, number 4 brings us to another iconic showdown, the dojo fight from Fist of Fury. This one's important not just because of how visually stunning it is, but because of the historical context, too.
Oh, this fight is pure visual poetry. Lee, shirtless, taking on a whole dojo by himself, those nunchucks whirling around him like a mini tornado. It's breathtaking.
It really is. It was a turning point for Hong Kong cinema. Before this, a lot of movies were focused on traditional, kind of over-the-top swordplay. This fight, it helped shift the focus to a more grounded, bare-knuckle fighting style.
Yeah, and Lee's leading the charge, literally. But beyond the visuals, what makes this fight such a game changer?
Well, it showcases the raw power of Lee's fighting style. No fancy weapons, no elaborate choreography. It's pure Jeet Kune Do. Speed, efficiency, adaptability.
And that moment where he makes the rival school literally eat their words. They have to swallow that paper with all their insults written on it. Brilliant.
Right. It's a symbolic victory. It's not just physical dominance, but mental, too. He's not just defeating his opponents. He's taking down their arrogance, their whole philosophy.
Like he's saying, your words are meaningless, your style is outdated, and I'm here to prove it.
Exactly. It's powerful both within the film and for martial arts cinema in general. Lee's not just a fighter, he's a revolutionary. He's pushing the genre forward, inspiring a whole new generation of filmmakers, martial artists.
Okay, so we've seen Lee as this adaptable fighter, this strategic mind game player, this revolutionary figure. What other sides of him do these fights reveal?
All right, number 3 on Watch Mojo's list. This one dives into the moral complexities of Lee's character. It's the scene in The Chinese Connection where he breaks his oath of nonviolence to get revenge for his family.
Ah, yeah. This one's a heartbreaker. We see a totally different Lee here. He's torn. He's carrying the weight of this decision. You can see how drained he is by the violence.
This fight, it's not really about a physical win. It's about the emotional, the moral consequences of violence. It challenges that classic image of the unbeatable warrior. It shows us a man grappling with difficult choices, with the burden of revenge.
And that last move, where he thrusts his fingers into his enemy's chest, brutal, heartbreaking. You can feel the raw emotion in it, the desperation. So different from that playful confidence we've seen in other fights.
Exactly. And the way he collapses afterwards, completely spent physically and emotionally, it just emphasizes that point. Even when you win, there's a huge cost. Violence, no matter how justified, it leaves its mark. It's powerful, thought-provoking, it elevates the film. It's not just an action flick anymore. It's a deeper look at human nature.
It reminds us that Lee's films, they were about more than just cool fight scenes. They explored complex themes, human emotions. What other unexpected depths are waiting for us in these top two?
Okay, number 2 on the list. The fight against Mr. Han in Enter the Dragon. This one's fascinating for a bunch of reasons, one of which is purely visual.
You mean those iconic scratches on Lee's chest? I always wondered how he got those.
This is the fight. It happens in a mirror chamber, which adds this psychological element to the combat.
The mirror chamber, yes. It's such a cool setting. Lee's reflection staring back at him, multiplying his opponent, creating this feeling of disorientation, claustrophobia.
Right. The mirror chamber becomes a metaphor for Lee's internal struggle. He's not just fighting Mr. Han, he's fighting his own fears, his doubts, the potential for self-deception.
So it's a symbolic representation of this inner battle. He's confronting a physical opponent, but also his own psychological demons.
Exactly. It works on multiple levels. It shows how Lee blends physical skill with psychological depth. And then he's left with those scars, a physical reminder of the battle he's fought, both inside and out.
You know, before we get to number one, which I think we all know what's coming, it's amazing how each of these fights, they're entertaining, obviously, but they also reveal something deeper about Lee's philosophy, his character, his impact on film. It's making me rethink the whole action genre.
That's the beauty of Lee. He went beyond the limits of art. He used action to explore these deeper themes and bigger ideas.
Okay, I'm ready. Let's hear about the number one Bruce Lee moment. I knew it had to be the Chuck Norris fight. That legendary showdown when he hit the track. All the speed, the intensity, the cat. Come on, it doesn't get more iconic.
You got it. This fight is legendary for a reason. It brings together everything we've been talking about, the physical skill, the philosophical depth, the strategic brilliance, and of course Lee's just got that undeniable charisma.
And the setting, the Roman Colosseum. It's so historic, so grand, it adds this whole other level of
It's not just a fight, right? It's a clash of cultures, of fighting styles, of philosophies even.
Now!
You've got Lee's fluid Jeet Kune Do representing adaptability, innovation, and then you've got Morris's powerful karate, which is all emotions.
And you can't forget that stray cat just casually watching the entire fight. It's like the filmmakers knew they were capturing something truly special, something that would go beyond time and genre.
Exactly. It speaks to Lee's vision as a filmmaker. He knew the details mattered. Even something as small as a stray cat could add depth and make a scene more interesting.
And speaking of details, I love those moments of preparation before the fight. Lee's stretching, Norris taking off his shirt. It builds the tension, makes the clash that much more impactful.
Right, and the way they size each other up, the strategic taunting. It's like a mental chess match before they even throw a punch. Lee understood that a fight could be won or lost before it even started.
But even during the fight, even when he's pushing Norris to his limit, there's this sense of respect between them. It's not just about winning, it's about testing each other's skills, pushing each other to become better.
That's something you don't see too often in action movies. But Lee knew respect was important, even for your opponent. It takes the fight from just a brawl and turns it into a display of skill, of sportsmanship.
And when Lee wins, that nod he gives Norris, it says it all. It's like he's saying, you are a worthy opponent, and I respect your strength and skill.
It's the perfect ending to such an epic fight. It reminds us that true mastery isn't just about beating your opponent, it's about acknowledging their worth and learning from the experience.
So we've gone through all these iconic fight scenes, but Lee's legacy, it's about way more than just fighting, right? His impact on filmmaking, on philosophy, on pop culture. I mean, where do you even begin?
Well, think about it. Lee brought a level of realism and athleticism to fight choreography that nobody had seen before. He trained so hard, he honed his body and his skills to the point where every move was both beautiful and dangerous.
And he didn't let himself be limited by the rules of the genre. He brought in philosophy, humor, social commentary, even dance into those sight scenes. It was something completely new, groundbreaking.
He challenged stereotypes, embraced diversity, used his platform to fight injustice. His films, they made you think, they challenged the status quo, they tackled big issues like race,
Yeah.
identity, cultural imperialism.
And then there's his personal philosophy, Jeet Kune Do, which has touched people way beyond just the world of martial arts.
Jeet Kune Do, the way of the intercepting fist, it's all about adapting, efficiency, self-expression. It's not about sticking to rigid traditions. It's about finding what works for you, being present, and always evolving.
It's a philosophy you can apply to any part of life, really. Relationships, creative work, your career.
And that's why Lee's legacy is still growing all these years later. He was more than just a martial artist. He was a thinker, an artist, a cultural icon who inspired millions to be their best, to challenge the norm, and to stay true to themselves.
So for someone who wants to learn more about Lee's legacy, where would you recommend they start?
I'd say start with his writing. He was a really insightful writer, and his book, Tao of Jeet Kune Do, it's full of wisdom about his martial arts philosophy and his whole outlook on life.
It's not just about fighting. It gives you a look into his mind, how he thought, what he believed about personal growth and self-discovery.
There are also tons of biographies, documentaries, interviews out there that explore his life and work from different angles.
It's like peeling back the layers of an onion. Each new discovery helps you understand this complex, amazing person a little bit better.
And most importantly, I'd encourage people to look beyond the surface. Really think about the ideas Lee was trying to share, whether it's his approach to martial arts, his philosophy of self-expression, or his passion for social justice.
Because Bruce Lee wasn't just about those incredible kicks and punches. He was about pushing limits, defying expectations, and living a life full of purpose and authenticity.
That's a message that's just as powerful today as it was then, inspiring us to be better, do better, and leave our own mark on the world.
Yeah, well said. It's been amazing diving deep into Bruce Lee's legacy through these iconic fight scenes. Huge thanks to our expert for sharing your knowledge and giving us a glimpse into the man behind the legend. And to our listeners, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep letting Bruce Lee inspire you. Until next time, keep diving deep.